Hey guys, and welcome back to Rush Royale. And today I got a chest I opened here in Rush Royale, and I happened to notice that I was going to get a legendary card out of this chest, and I was wondering which legendary card is it going to be. So here we are, legendary card. What is it going to be? It is the Inquisitor, which is a very interesting card and kind of a slightly meta card as well in Rush Royale. So it increases the damage when you have certain numbers, such as 1 or 4, the two most common ones that I typically am using it with. And you have to have that exact number of that card played on the board in order for its, sort of bonus damage thing to happen. And when you do, the Inquisitor is much more effective when you have that exact number, such as 1 or 4 out there. You can get larger numbers as well, but the thing is, it takes up a lot of space on the board, so I found that, either 1 or 4 is typically the easiest to manage. And the way that I do that and manage this card is by using the Harlequin card, which allows me to just make a quick copy. So basically, I have a Harlequin or a couple of Harlequins that I keep out there, and then that allows me to draw cards. And if one of the cards happens to be an Inquisitor, which messes up the number of Inquisitors that I have, then I simply play the Harlequin to copy one of the Inquisitors, and then I combine them. And most of the time, that doesn't combine back into another Inquisitor, so that allows me to get my number back to the original number that I had, right? Occasionally, it does combine into another Inquisitor, but most of the time, it doesn't, so that ends up being a pretty good method to kind of offset drawing unwanted Inquisitors. Yeah, I mean, the Inquisitor, it's a fairly engaging strategy as far as most of the strategies go in Rush Royale. It's fairly engaging because, again, you have to manage the exact number of Inquisitors. You can't just kind of randomly merge and hope it works out, because most of the time with Inquisitors, it isn't going to work out. So you have to actively be kind of managing the number you've got and be prepared to merge as fast as possible. Because the other thing is, you can recover with the Inquisitor and get back to the right number, but if you wait too long to do that, and you go too long with the wrong number, it can nerf your DPS to the point where you can be way behind in a wave, and even if you manage to merge and recover to the right number, you can still be far enough behind in a wave that you can't catch back up. So you have to be time efficient with how you are managing the Inquisitors, and in particular, certain bosses such as Bedlam and Tribunal can be very dangerous to this particular, to really any Inquisitor decks mostly, because they can obviously mess up the number of Inquisitors that you have, and you can lose, especially Bedlam. I have such a hard time with Bedlam with Inquisitor, so I'd be curious to know if you guys have anyone who plays Rush Royale has any good strategies for dealing with that, because I found I can just, even if I recover, Bedlam can just keep flipping the number of Inquisitors to the wrong number so quickly that it's hard to maintain enough damage on a Bedlam in the later rounds to actually defeat it with Inquisitor, because it just keeps getting messed up. So unless you get lucky and it flips it to the right number of Inquisitors, you can be in big trouble there. So you can see the other card here I was pairing it with was the Stasis legendary card, which I really like as a legendary. I really like that card because it can really help out in the later sort of mob rounds, the non-boss rounds. It can really help out and allow you to clear, or at least just delay, the units that are out there. And I found that card works pretty well and has saved my butt in a number of situations. I'm still kind of figuring out what the right sort of optimal number of stasis cards to have out there is, because obviously you still want to have some other damage cards to support the Inquisitor as well. So it's kind of a balance with the board composition, especially since I normally stick to 4 Inquisitors. I just find that the higher numbers are harder to manage. So I might try some decks where I go with a higher number of Inquisitors, but thus far I've been pretty much sticking with 4 mostly, and then focusing on support cards. In this deck I was running Stasis, Thunderer, and Vampire as well. Yeah, trying to figure out how many Stasis exactly to have on the board versus how many of the other cards has definitely been a challenge. Thunderer has been very good recently, and I'll probably just be doing some decks specifically around the Thunderer because it's been a really good card recently. It got buffed and has been quite solid, especially at the higher merging ranks. So that's pretty cool, but I do think having Inquisitor out there somewhat limits the ability to merge up Thunderer in that way, just because I'm trying so hard to manage the number of Inquisitors that I'm not really focusing or taking the risks to merge the, merge. That's 4 more, spots that I can't really merge as easily, for fear of getting the wrong number of Inquisitors. So it kind of limits the potential of the Thunderer in this deck, whereas a deck specifically around the Thunderer, there are quite a few of those right now. Some of them use the Grindstone, and they seem to be quite good. So I'm definitely going to be exploring the Thunderer some more in some other videos, I think. But yeah, I'm enjoying Rush Royale a lot more since they added more cards back into the game, because there's just a lot of different strategies now, and I kind of like that. They're not all super meta viable, but they're at least fun and entertaining different types of strategies to use, and I definitely appreciate that. Similar to Brawl Stars, I just like the depth of these games, and that's partly what keeps me coming back to play them more. So hoping that continues and they keep actively updating Rush Royale, because right now I'm really appreciating that, especially coming from Castle Crush, where we are not getting regular updates, and that was definitely hurting my drive to play Castle Crush. So I know it's going to take a while to get into some of these games on my channel because my audience is still largely based around Castle Crush, so it's going to take some time, and I'm just going to keep making content for the next couple of months on some new things and see what people like the best and where, there seems to be the most demand for content. And hopefully as I get more familiar with these games, I can, like I did with Castle Crush, start making better and more interesting content as my knowledge of the game grows. This proved to be a pretty strong combo here, the Inquisitor with the Stasis card. Proved to be pretty strong, and I couldn't get that many other cards out like Vampires and such, but honestly I didn't really need them. It pretty much just worked to focus mainly on the Inquisitor and Stasis, with the Thunderer as another sort of extra DPS card. That seemed to work pretty solidly, and then just really having a few Vampires was all I really wanted is the thing. Because if you have too many Vampires, the Vampires are not really damage-dealing cards, and they will kind of eat away at your overall combat capabilities. So the Stasis, though, was really helping out in terms of trying to work on some of these later waves. But unfortunately, this one here, it's like I just was not getting there, and I could tell this was the end. I could have tried to merge something, but with Gorgon, it's hard because you can't seemingly merge once it puts the rocks over your units. So you have to try and merge before that happens, and especially trying to manage that with the Inquisitor was like impossible. So yeah, let's try another one here I had going, and again, finding the Thunderer to be a useful support card. But again, I don't feel like the Thunderer is getting fully taken advantage of in this deck, because you need to sort of merge it up, I think, to get its full capabilities. And you know, I'm not doing that level of merging quite often with the Inquisitor. Although here I did manage to get a tier 3 Thunderer, which is pretty solid. And that should be pretty helpful for the rest of this match. And I also have Inquisitors going, so combined, those two are doing some good damage right here. Although my opponent is still doing better with the sheer number of Boreas that they have out there. And they also have a Hex out there as well, 2 Hexes. So my opponent is doing better for the moment, but I think my deck could hold up better in the long run of this match. I will need to try and upgrade my Inquisitors a bit. Like actually get to some, upgrade the tiers. Because the tier 1s, they don't really hold for that long, so we'll see how I can do this. Typically, I like to try and work with upgrading the Inquisitors earlier on in the match because honestly, you have more flexibility. And the other thing is when I upgrade my Inquisitors, unless I have a Jester available, so you can see here, I was able to do the upgrades fairly safely. And even if I lost, you know, a handful of seconds of optimal Inquisitor time, it wasn't as impactful as that becomes later in the match. The other thing that helps if I don't have a Harlequin, typically I'll wait until I have a lot of mana saved up and then draw cards so that way, you know, I have the ability to draw more cards. If I happen to sort of brick my Inquisitor setup, I can still keep drawing and try to get some additional units out there to merge. So you can see here I'm in pretty good shape courtesy of my 2 tier 3 Inquisitors. And I did sort of brick my Inquisitor setup briefly, but I had the Harlequin there in my back pocket and was able to use that to bail myself out and acquire another tier 3 Thunderer, which was a pretty good pickup, I'd say. Out of the cards I could have gotten, that was probably the best one, I think. Because good support card here for the rest of my setup. So we get the Tamer, which is again a good draw for the Inquisitors. With Inquisitors, I feel like you really don't want to get... Well, with a lot of decks, you don't really want to get Tribunal or Bedlam. But especially with Engineer decks and Inquisitor decks, which are highly dependent on certain cards, either in certain positions or a certain number of certain cards. Bedlam and Tribunal can definitely mess that up. I'd argue especially Bedlam is really annoying for Inquisitor decks mostly because of the fact that I can't really, you know, I get in this, I have, you know, I have Harlequins out there too, so it can become an issue. It can become an issue where I'm trying to merge things in the middle of Bedlam doing its thing, and then I merge things and I get back to the right Inquisitor number, and then Bedlam changes it again before I can take him out, and then I have to merge more things, and it's like, well, do I just give up on Bedlam, or do I try and just quickly merge? Especially with Harlequin, it's like, well, I can copy, but by the time I've copied, Bedlam is changing again, and it just becomes quite a frantic process. So I've got the Inquisitor, Thunderer, and Stasis maxed in this match. And at this point, I should be in pretty good shape, I think, because I've got a lot to work with, and I've got 2 tier 3 Inquisitors and 2 tier 3 Thunderers. And it looks like I seem to be behind my opponent, though, but the Stasis definitely gives me more time to try and get these bosses down. Especially Tamer isn't a bad one. Tamer is definitely one of the ones that can work best with this type of deck, I think. If I get like a Bedlam or something, that could spell trouble. Warlock can also be problematic, but it depends which tower it hits. Highly depends which unit it takes down. If it hits one of the Inquisitors, it could be a problem, especially if it hits, or if it just in general hits a higher leveled unit, that can be a problem. But if it hits a lower, you know, lower tiered one, that isn't necessarily so bad. So Warlock is a little bit random, especially in the later rounds. In the earlier rounds, you can sort of mitigate it by taking it out quickly. And you can see Stasis here really providing me with a lot of time to try and get these units down. Because it looks like my opponent might have been a little bit better, but as you can see, actually they are losing here because the Stasis is holding the stuff back enough that I can keep going. But however, this could be a problem here. And of course it takes out the Inquisitor, which was not good here, and I'm in full-on panic mode. I need to do something a little bit faster. There we go. I finally am able to get the Inquisitors back on track. I think I have a narrow edge over my opponent, but it's very close here. And now I seem to be losing. Probably because I lost that Inquisitor. So we're both going to take an L on this round, it looks like. Because of the Warlock. The second tower I lost wasn't the worst. So, but that tier 3 Inquisitor, I believe, was not good to lose. And now Puppeteer, which is, well, it's not particularly good. I mean, we both stand to lose levels here on our units, but Puppeteer in later stages, I feel like it's kind of about saving mana to be able to gain the levels back, because it's not a question of whether or not you're going to lose them. At this stage in the match, you know, you're not going to take down the boss instantly most of the time, so you probably are going to need mana in the bank to try and deal with that. They could lose before we reach the Puppeteer, but it's going to depend. It's going to be close potentially. Could be very close. They are set to lose, and wow, we got it, guys. We finished them off. That was pretty fantastic. So hope you guys enjoyed this Inquisitor video. I'll probably be playing with that card some more because it is a lot of fun. It's a very engaging card to play with. So leave a like if you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comments and what other types of content I should create. Maybe subscribe if you're new to my channel. And thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more videos.